And they had a very basic idea. You know, they call it a collective agreement, which is a longer way of saying a deal. We had a deal in this country, didn't we, Nathan? You get up in the morning and work hard, you do the right thing, you follow the law, you get a nice house in a beautiful neighborhood, on a safe street, under a proud flag. That was the deal in this country. That was what made this country so special. It's what attracted people from around the world. That was the Canadian promise. But after a decade, a lost liberal decade, of costs and crime rising, of our economy falling under the American thumb, this liberal government does not deserve a fourth term. We need to put Canada first for a change with a new conservative government. Thank you very much. What a crowd! What an incredible crowd here in the Hammer. Look at this crowd. You know, the liberal establishment has said that their party deserves a fourth term in power. They replaced the much-hated Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor and hand-picked successor and said you should just forget about the last 10 years where they doubled housing costs, doubled the national debt, doubled the lineups at our food banks, doubled violent crime, and they said, elect them for a fourth time. The liberal establishment has anointed our next leader, who's not even been elected, but is also already acting like he runs the world. This guy... And I don't want to run the world. I want to put you back in charge of your life. I'm not running to take power. I'm running to give it back. Thank you. That's why I'm running for office. I don't want to run your life. I want to run a decent government that lives within its means, leaves more in your pocket, lets you get ahead, does a few basic things right instead of doing a lot of things wrong, that gives people back control of their decisions. But most of all, the reason that I am in politics is to restore the Canadian promise, the promise that was made to my wife when she arrived here, that was made to me when I was born to humble means, that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work pays off, that we can be proud Canadians, that we can fly our flag, that our people can trade with each other, that our soldiers can protect us, that our borders are secure, that we are one country, united for the Canadian people. Après 10 ans des libéraux, ils ont brisé notre système d'immigration, ajouté 100 000 fonctionnaires, doublé notre dette nationale et le coût de logement aussi. C'est la pire inflation depuis 40 ans et ils ont affaibli notre économie face aux Américains. Il nous faut un changement pour reprendre le contrôle et relancer notre économie. On va couper la bureaucratie, les taxes et les impôts, exploiter nos ressources naturelles, repérer l'immigration, mettre les criminels en prison. Et finalement, nous allons renforcer notre économie pour pouvoir faire face à Donald Trump dans une position de force, c'est-à-dire mettre le Canada d'abord pour faire changement. Now, we know that Donald Trump would like to have Mark Carney, a weak liberal, in charge of our country. Because he knows, first of all, that Mark Carney will sell out our country, as he's done so often. He's a guy with, up until recently, had 3 passports, moved his corporate headquarters out of Canada to New York, only days after Trump threatened tariffs, leaving behind Canadian workers. And it was revealed today that Mark Carney actually went to China and took a $250 million loan from a state-backed Chinese bank. And he still has investments in the same company for which that loan was made, which means that the Prime Minister of our country is now beholden to a hostile foreign regime that has executed 4 Canadian citizens, taken 2 others hostage, done incursions into our Arctic in our democracy. It is time for Mark Carney to stop covering up his foreign conflicts of interest. Come clean about what you own and stop selling out our country to foreign interests. This is the globalist ideology, which seeks to shut down our resource sector and move jobs abroad, bring in big, heavy taxes on our citizens, while importing goods from countries that pollute far more. This has destroyed the working class in our country. Meanwhile, they print money, driving up the cost of housing and food, forcing our people to go to food banks, and are blocking an entire generation from ever owning a home. That is what has been the result of the last 10 years. My friends, the last 10 years have been about the Liberals. I'm here to say that the next 10 years are going to be about you. Absolutely. Hey, good to see you guys. Thank you. We are unleashing a beautiful Canada First plan. They will put Canadians back in charge of their country and put you back in charge of your wallet. It starts by bringing back our jobs and our industry so that we can once again be a self-reliant nation that stands on its own 2 feet. Yeah. We know that what has driven the money away, capital goes where capital grows. And extremely high taxes in Canada mean that more and more industry is forced to leave for places where they can get a better business environment and lower taxes. Higher taxes on energy, investment, work, and home building mean less gets done in this country. But we're going to reverse that. I've announced that we will pass a big, beautiful, bring-it-home tax cut on investment, work, home building, and energy that will incentivize our economy to be strong again. Income tax. Income tax, the worst tax. Income tax is... I was talking about that incredible meme that I saw online the other day. There was a kid in a park with his dad, and the kid was crying, and he said to Dad, "What is an income tax for him?" And the dad said to the boy, "It's just like your high school report card, except the reverse. The harder you work, the more you get punished." Income tax is the fine you pay for the crime of working hard. The more you work, the more you pay. And that's why people say they put in an extra hour, earn that extra bonus, get that extra shift, and they look at their pay stub at the end of the month, and it's one tax after another. It's not worth it to work more. That's why I've announced that a Canada First Conservative government will cut income taxes by 15% to make work pay. Thank you. Lower income tax. Anybody over there want an income tax cut? Anybody out there think that you should get more of your paycheck and that the government should get less? Yes. That's what's going to happen. An income tax cut will mean our workers and families have the ability to spend more in local businesses, which will create yet more jobs for workers who will pay even lower taxes. These tax cuts will apply to every single person who pays income tax. It is a tax cut for retired seniors who are on a fixed income. Are we any of those here today? Lots of them. It is an income tax cut for the waitress who is struggling to feed her children but works hard every day to get that extra tip. She'll be keeping more of the tip, and more of that will go into nutritious food for her wonderful kids. It's an income tax cut for the steel worker at Stelco, DeFasco. And it doesn't stop there. Not only do we want you to bring home more of your paycheck, you need a home to bring it to, right? So we've got to build the homes. Right now, the biggest part of the cost of any new home in Ontario is taxes. Nationwide, it's the same story. 30% goes to taxes. Another 20 to 30% goes to bureaucratic delays. The time it takes to get a permit, the rezoning, the lawyers, the accountants, the lobbyists, the bureaucracy, the side fees. In fact, more money from a new home today goes to bureaucrats in office buildings than goes to the carpenters, electricians, and plumbers who actually build the homes. And to add insult to injury, those carpenters can't even afford to live and buy the homes that they built. That is fundamentally unjust. Nathan, would you say there are many of your members that can't actually buy a home? The young guys, do we have any 35-year-olds living in mom's basement here? You don't have to be ashamed. It's everybody. It's normal now. It's now bizarre when you meet someone under the age of 20 that's been able to buy a house. It really is. It's hard to believe this, but 10 years ago, the average home in Canada cost $450,000. Today, it's almost double that. And worse, in big cities, it's well over $1 million. Vancouver and Toronto are the two most expensive housing markets in North America. Worse than New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, many other places where incomes are higher, population is greater, and there's less land to build on. We have the most expensive real estate in the G7. We have the fewest homes per capita in that group, even though we have by far the most land to build on. So tell me this, we have 10 times as much land to build on per person as the next closest country, and somehow we have the fewest homes. But what's the cause of that? Government bureaucracy, government gatekeepers. Now, let's be very clear about this. The same Liberals who doubled housing costs over the next 10 years will only make it worse if they are re-elected to a fourth mandate. What we need is a Canada First government who will bring real change. And this is my plan. First of all, we will take the GST, the federal sales tax, off all new homes of under $1.3 million. Build the homes. 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 But we're not done there. We're giving billions of dollars of federal money right now to municipalities. The Liberals have encouraged those local governments to build up their gatekeeping bureaucracies that stop building from happening and give us the second slowest building permits anywhere in the OECD. I will require municipalities, as a condition of getting their federal funds, to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development taxes to build 15% more homes every single year. And then we will sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build beautiful homes. And you know something, it just warms my heart to think of the beautiful U-Haul truck rolling up with a wonderful family in it to move into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. So we're going to get rid of the taxes on new homes. And we're going to get rid of the worst tax of all. A tax on your energy, a tax on your food, a tax on your job. I'm talking now, of course, of axing the Liberal carbon tax. So, first of all, the father of the carbon tax, of course, is Mark Carney. Mark Carney. He was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor while Trudeau raised the tax. Trudeau passed a law to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. Now, they did have one disagreement, just one. Mark Carney thought that Trudeau's carbon tax was not high enough. He said the tax should go even higher, and that in order to make it less unpopular, it should be turned into a shadow carbon tax. That is to say, carefully hidden so that nobody can tell when they're paying it. You see, if you just embed it, it's a very sneaky move. And so after Liberals having this tax in place for 7 years, they decided that 30 days before the election, they would hide it at the gas pumps so that Canadians would forget about it. And of course, the Liberal media tells us we're not allowed to talk about the carbon tax anymore because they want people to be tricked into voting Liberal again, after which Mr. Carney, along with his radical Liberal MPs, will raise the tax higher than ever. Now, if you doubt that for a second, keep in mind that numerous Liberal cabinet ministers have literally said the planet will burn if you don't have a carbon tax. So you want us to believe that they've suddenly changed their mind 30 days before election? Give me a break. If you believe that, I've got swampland to sell you in Florida. Expecting a Liberal to stop raising your taxes is like expecting a vampire to become a vegetarian. And then there's the industrial carbon tax. Now this part, I have to give Mr. Carney credit. He's been honest. He wants an industrial carbon tax. And he was asked, who would pay it? And he said, well, don't worry. Canadians don't have to pay it because it will go on things like steel. And nobody uses steel anymore, he said. Has he been to Hamilton lately? I think he was over, was it in the Sioux? He went to a steel plant. They weren't welcoming him very warmly over there. He could only find Liberal MPs to stand behind them. Imagine how little you have to know about the economy to think that we can have a modern economic civilization without steel. Steel is literally the bones of a modern economy. You tax steel, you tax everything. And that is one of the reasons. That is one of the reasons why Conservatives, a new Conservative government, will put Canada first by axing the carbon tax for everything, for everybody, for real, for good, for a change. And then we'll move on to the next part of our Bring It Home plan, and that is to bring home our resource jobs for a change. Our minerals, our oil, our gas, Our stuff has to come out of the ground, it has to be refined and improved here, and it has to be sold to other markets than the United States so that we get the benefits in this country and we stop subsidizing the Americans and the Chinese and the others. I've said that I'll kick that off by moving within 6 months to get permits on the Ring of Fire to unleash tens of billions of dollars of resource production right here in Ontario. Your guys are going to be working there. Your workers are going to be working on that project directly and indirectly. I think we have some LiUNA people here. LiUNA! We're going to have LiUNA workers on those job sites. They build roads. You know what? Stephen Guilbeault, Mark Carney's minister, doesn't want to build any roads. Well, we've got news to him. When I'm Prime Minister, we're going to rapidly grant more permits to build beautiful highways, and those highways will lead to mines, and our workers will be putting paychecks in their pockets. We're going to approve pipelines made with Canadian steel. We'll grant rapid permits for liquefied natural gas plants. We got incredible natural gas advantages. First of all, we've got 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Second of all, it takes 11 days to ship from British Columbia to Asia. It takes 20 days from the U.S. Gulf Coast. Furthermore, it takes 25% less energy to liquefy a gas in Canada because it's so cold. The cold weather removes a lot of the electricity that you need to cool the gas into a liquid form to get it on the ship. Furthermore, we have clean hydroelectricity in BC, Newfoundland, Quebec that could power that liquefaction. All we need, when we ask the people who build these things, what help do you need to make it happen? And they say very simply, get out of the way. We're going to repeal C-69, the No New Pipelines law, and replace it with a new law that will allow our builders to get permits within no more than 1 year and ideally within 6 months. We will pass something called shovel-ready zones. Here's the idea. We sit down and we look at the places where good industrial activity should go. Pipelines, mine, power stations, data centers. And then we draw a circle around it. We grant permits before we even receive an application. We publish the specifications and the standards that the builders have to meet to protect the security of the population and our local nature. And then we get out of the way and let entrepreneurs lock arms with workers and get the shovels in the ground. That's how we're going to get these projects going. We have incredible opportunities, my friends. In the States, the big tech companies are all building these data centers. Meta, Microsoft, the others they're actually buying nuclear plants of their own because these data centers are electricity consuming beasts. That's what they need. We need them here. You know, this is to power artificial intelligence. You know, we have a lot of artificial intelligence in the government. It's a different type. But when you do a ChatGPT inquiry, it takes literally 9 times as much electricity as a Google inquiry, just for scale. We have an electricity surplus. The Americans have an electricity deficit. And that's why we need to bring that production and those data centers here from the United States. But in order to do it, we need fast permits for the LNG power plants, the nuclear power plants. We've got to build the nukes. And for the data centers themselves, this will unleash massive $200,000 and $300,000 a year jobs for people who wear boots every day. It's going to boots, not suits. These are going to be incredible jobs for our people. And that's what our plan is, boots and not suits. We are going to, I'm telling the young people across the country, the best jobs of the future are going to be in the trades. Get yourself an apprenticeship. Do we have any tradesmen in the room? Yeah, right on. You know, when I go into businesses like this across the country, I did 600 events last year. And the businesses are no longer run by lawyers and MBAs. They're actually run by tradespeople who started working with their hands, and then they realized their problem-solving ability would help them run large businesses, and they're actually doing the best. But we need more of them. Right now, all the money is going to university and white-collar education. I got nothing against university. It's great. But we need to make sure that a fair share goes to the trades. And that's why my government, absolutely. We're going to bring back the $4,000 apprenticeship grant to help our young people with the cost of an apprenticeship. And we'll partner. We will partner with our union friends in great organizations like the United Association, like LIUNA, like the Boilermakers and others to build big, beautiful training halls that will train 350,000 young tradespeople for the future. Boots, not suits. Boots, not suits. Boots, not suits. But we want them to bring home paychecks to safe neighborhoods. Safety was something we used to take for granted in Canada. In fact, there are many communities across this country where people used to go out without even locking their door. And now, often, they're afraid to go out at all. Crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder are increasingly rampant on our once safe and tranquil streets, as we see increasing violent crime taking over in places where we were safe before. What is the cause of all this crime? Well, the good news is we don't actually have a lot of criminals in Canada. The bad news is they're very productive, right? A very productive group of a small number of criminals do all the crime. In Vancouver, for example, they had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times. That means that the average offender was arrested once every 2 days. I mean, that actually takes work. You basically have to be doing crime all day, every day, if you're going to get caught every second day. But if you took those 40 offenders off the street, you would have 6,000 fewer crimes. So right now, we have Bill C-75, the Liberal Catch and Release Bail Law. That's right. Catch and release bail requires judges, and I quote, to release offenders at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. That's right in the law. And so the judges do what is written down, and they release the criminals often before the police have even filled out the paperwork on the latest crime. Then they've got C5, the house arrest law, which allows convicts to do their penalties in their living room. Larry Brock, the prosecutor, is here. Stand up, Larry. Stand up. Larry, the prosecutor. Yeah, stop the crime. Look at that. He was literally, you were literally a Crown attorney, weren't you? Yeah, so he's put, for 20 years, you put a lot of bad guys behind bars, eh? It would be a frustrating thing to try to do right now, eh? You'd be getting a lot of return customers. Yeah. I think someone said you almost got him, so I think he snuck out just under the wire, that guy over there. I'm sure he's a harmless guy, though. But in truth, it's funny that the joke is not really a joke. The police tell me that many of the criminals don't even try to avoid getting caught anymore, because it's actually more hassle to avoid getting caught than it is just to go in and go out. Anyway, house arrest means that if you're a chronic car thief, you can serve your sentence in the comfort of your living room, watching Netflix, or playing Grand Theft Auto, or walk out the front door and do the real thing all over again. And then you've got C-83, the despicable law that has allowed Paul Bernardo to move out of a maximum security penitentiary. My friends, if you re-elect the Liberals to a fourth consecutive term of soft on crime, you will have more chaos and violence in your streets. If you're ready to put Canada first for a change, Canadian safety first for a change, then you need a new Conservative government. We will. Our plan will repeal C-75, the catch and release law, and C-5, and we will bring in a new rule. Repeat offenders will be ineligible for bail, probation, parole, or house arrest. Jail, not bail. And then we will repeal C-83, and we will send Paul Bernardo back to a maximum security penitentiary forever. And then there's the drugs, the opioids. We know what happened. Greedy and corrupt pharmaceutical companies distributed these drugs in our hospitals and pharmacies. They told doctors to tell people they were not lethal or addictive. They were just a harmless way to make aches and pains go away. Often working class communities where people had job-related injuries would go to their doctor and say, "What can you do about my hip or my back?" And they would get overprescribed. They found that these drugs brought them comfort from the stresses of life, but then they couldn't get off them. And the drugs spread far and wide across North America, and in Canada, they have killed 50,000 of our friends, neighbors, brothers, and sisters, more than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. The government's solution has been to provide what they call safe supply, a taxpayer-funded stream. A taxpayer-funded stream of opioids that then get resold to children as the addicts and the drug dealers use the proceeds to buy more dangerous fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than heroin. 40 milligrams of fentanyl is enough to kill 20 people. Just to put it into perspective. My friends, it is like mass murder. It is like mass murder when you distribute these drugs. So our government, listen, there's no way Mark Carney is going to tackle this problem. He said it's not even a crisis. He's not going to stand up to China, which is producing the ingredients that go into these drugs, because of course he has massive financial interests in China. He's got a loan for his company from China. He will never act against China to defend our people. Well, I can tell you, we will put Canada first. We will stop the drugs with a real plan to bring our loved ones home drug-free. So here's the plan, my friends. First of all, we will declare that selling over 40 milligrams of fentanyl is equivalent to being a mass murderer. There will be life sentences for mass traffickers of fentanyl. Absolutely. Second, we will stop giving out tax-funded opioids And instead, we will invest the money in treatment and rehabilitation to bring our loved ones home drug-free. Beautiful places like the Oak Centre in Winnipeg, where they bring young people off the streets, give them counseling, group therapy, detox, physical exercise, yoga, sweat lodges for First Nations. They lift people up, cleanse their bodies of their poisons, repair their souls, help them get into a home and a job, and start their lives all over again. My message to anybody who's struggling with addiction out there: hang on, have hope, help is on the way. Thank you. And we will secure our borders. Right now, only 1% of shipping containers gets inspected because we don't have enough frontline resources. Meanwhile, the government is spending billions of dollars confiscating lawful property from licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested hunters and sport shooters. Which of course makes absolutely no sense, because if you've got a license, it means by definition you're probably not a criminal, right? Criminals don't go out and get a license to buy a firearm. It's crazy. It's common sense. Over 80% of the guns used in crime in Toronto, according to the police, are actually illegal guns smuggled in through the Canada-US border. So here's my common sense plan. We're going to have high-powered scanners that can look right into the shipping containers and intercept the drugs, guns, and stolen vehicles. Here's how it would work. You imagine the inspectors are there. They look at the manifest. It says that there's modular parts from the Faro facility in here. Faro, there's Faro. So it says that there are these beautiful modular parts inside there. But you look at the scanner and it turns out it's a beamer. Well, then you pull the beamer out, you call the guy on the VIN, and you say, were you planning to send your beamer to Turkey today? And he would probably say, no, I was going to drive it to work. I work at Faro. I was going to go in, but I had to call them and tell them my car was missing this morning. And so they said, well, it's okay, we've got it over here at the port, we'll give you your car back. And then you find out who booked the shipping container, and you say, you're under arrest, you have the right to remain silent. It's pretty simple. We're going to have watchtowers and 2,000 more CBSA officers who will have the ability to guard our entire border to intercept drugs, guns, stolen cars, illegal migration. And we will pay for all of this by cutting back office bureaucracy, overpriced consultants, and canceling the confiscation of the property of licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested hunters and sport shooters. I want to protect Canadians from criminals. The Liberals want to protect turkeys from hunters. I think it's pretty clear who's got their priorities right and wrong in this business. We're going to do the right thing for our people and the right thing for our country. Because it's clear, after the lost Liberal decade of rising crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, electing the Liberals to a fourth term will only make it worse. Instead, we need to put Canada first for a change by locking up criminals, securing our border, and protecting law-abiding people. But putting Canada first means also rebuilding the great Canadian Armed Forces. Got a General, mise en œuvre. General, come on over. Come on over. Here we have him. Great. The General mise en œuvre. Give him a big round of applause for the anti-woke General. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. You served. You had even more distinguished career than he did, didn't you?
Of course.
Yes.
And like Anna and I are the same.
That's right. And he's still working for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're making sure that he behaves himself most of the time. All right. We got to be realistic. This is a great general who served our country for many years. Let's give it up for all the veterans. All the veterans. Give it up for all the veterans. Thank you. We're going to buy 4 new massive icebreakers that will take back our northern seas. We will procure more submarines, Poseidon aircraft, fighter jets, and we will also invest in the first post-Cold War Arctic base for Canada, CFB Iqaluit. We'll also expand the cadets so that our young people can learn more about service, about practical skills. They can be mentored by members of our armed forces and by the great Canadian Rangers, whose first patrol will also be doubled in size. This will allow us to take back control of our Arctic, exert our sovereignty. We're going to take control of our economic and military destiny and show all the nations of the world that we are able to stand on our own 2 feet and protect our nation for ourselves. And our military will be guided by a warrior culture, not a woke culture. Thank you. I love you too. I love all of you. You inspire me. You inspire me. You're the great Canadian people who inspire me to bring back the country that we knew and still love. And that also means putting Canada first when it comes to immigration. We had the best immigration system in the world. An immigration system that welcomed the brightest people to come and fill jobs that Canadians couldn't do. All of the waves after waves of those who came and ended up on shop floors in places like Hamilton with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. That worked because we brought people in the right numbers. We screened to make sure that they were the kinds of people we wanted. They followed the law. They worked hard. And we were able to ensure that they had homes and health care and jobs because the numbers that arrived were consistent with what we could absorb. But after the lost Liberal decade, that there's been a massive change as the globalist agenda that the Liberals call the Century Initiative took over. Today we found out that the same Liberal immigration minister who implemented the Century Initiative to grow our population by over 1 million people every year is now running again for Mark Carney. If you think it is the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal strategies, the same Liberal agenda, the same last-minute Liberal promises, which will mean you'll get the same Liberal results, including on immigration. We've seen massive fraud in the international student program. The temporary foreign worker program has been abused by corporate elites that use it in order to drive down Canadian wages by bringing in excess numbers of people from extremely poor countries. Even international human rights bodies have pointed out the abuses that this system has brought under the Liberals. And the Liberals will continue doing it. They continue to stand by the Century Initiative. Just the other day, Mark Wiseman, who, along with the Globe and Mail, which actually sponsors the Century Initiative, Mark Wiseman is now advisor to Mark Carney, and Carney refuses to disavow it. My friends, our common sense Canada First approach rejects the Century Initiative. We will get back to common sense immigration, where we bring in only the number of people that we can absorb into our housing, our health care, and our jobs. We will end the fraud in the international student program, and we will make sure that corporations only use temporary foreign workers in the very rare cases when there are not Canadians available. Canadian jobs should go to Canadians first. We will reject all of these schemes, and I will ban all my ministers from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. We will end cancel culture and celebrate rather than eliminating our beautiful history. Terry Fox, our veterans, the famous five, we'll all be back in the passport. We're going to stand up for our history and be proud of our country. We're going to end this post-national ideology that the Liberals have imposed on our country. We are going to stand up for who we are and what we believe, and we're going to put our own people first. We will be a nation that brings home its jobs, that trades with each other, that looks after its people, that secures its border, that rebuilds its military, and honors its legendary past. We will go forward with confidence, knowing that we have the strength to stand on our own 2 feet, stand up to the Americans, and be a proud and united nation across the land. We will bring home hope for our people. If you're out there today and you are that single mother who's going to bed hungry, wondering how you're going to feed your kids in the morning, I'm here to say that hope is on the way. If you are that young couple desperate to buy a home and start a family before the biological clock runs out in your mid-30s, I'm here to say that change is on the way. If you are an elderly couple choosing between eating and heating and wondering what happened to the beautiful country that you knew and still love, I am here to say that both hope and change are on the way. We will go. We will not be a nation of tax collectors and toll masters, of bureaucrats and busybodies, of gatekeepers and grandees, rulers and rule makers. No, we are a country of explorers and entrepreneurs, of artists and adventurers, of workers and warriors, of patriots and pioneers, a proud nation, a united nation bound together by the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life on a safe street in a beautiful house protected by brave troops under a proud flag. Canada first, let's bring it home. Thank you. Thank you.
a member of the signal chain, and the discussion included the Vice President's private opinion on the wisdom of proposed U.S. strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Vance, quote, I think we are making a mistake. I am not sure the President is aware of how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There was a strong argument for delaying this a month. You don't recall?
I don't, as you
don't recall seeing that?
Read that. I don't.
It included the private opinions of the Secretary of Defense on the timing of strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Director Radcliffe, surely you prepared for this hearing today. You were part of a group of principals, senior echelons of the U.S. government, in now a widely publicized breach of sensitive information. You don't recall whether the Vice President opined on the wisdom of the strikes? That's your testimony today under oath?
In that setting, I don't recall.
Here's what Secretary Hegseth said, quote, waiting a few weeks or months does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. One, this leaks and we look indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first or Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms. Your testimony is you don't recall the Secretary of Defense sending that message or reading it?
I recall there being an exchange. I don't recall the specifics as you're reading it.
Well, let's put it this way, Director Radcliffe, a discussion by senior U.S. officials on the timing and risks of a proposed military campaign and disagreements between the President and the Vice President about U.S. plans and intentions would be of obvious interest to foreign intelligence services, would it not?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to take your extra 13 seconds, but I want to go back to what I addressed at the outset. I mean, this was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost. The Houthis had this information, could reposition their defensive systems. So I want to get a little more information about this. Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security Council.
Because it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
stated, is it classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Senator, I was on a signal messaging group.
So you were the John Ratcliffe on that chat?
I was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I provide some context, Senator, to that?
Yes, but I've got a series of questions.
Well, but I think it's important because at the outset you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps. So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Director Radcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is.
I've got a series of
decryption. So to finish,
I understand encryption.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
Well, we will make that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Let me go on. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a SCIF?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that.
And if there's no classified materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues will remember, when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor?
Seriously? I don't know. Maybe, Madam Chairwoman, it's really important to the people of North Carolina. You may have a lot of constituents who have walk-in refrigerators. I don't know. But for me, I can tell you, I just spent a week in Colorado, in the rural communities that I represent, hosting town halls, visiting with folks in my community, constituents, ranchers, farmers, teachers, working families, packed town halls. And at those town halls, the one subject that no one brought up? Commercial refrigerators. It never came up. No constituent of mine approached me at a town hall that we held 3 days ago with over 1,000 people in my community. No one at that town hall said, Congressman, can you please go back to Washington and pass legislation on commercial refrigerators? It's really important. Nobody said that. They were really concerned about the Republicans' plan to gut Medicaid. They're pretty concerned about the Republican plans to dismantle Social Security offices across the country. They're deeply concerned about reports that this administration is going to end phone line customer service for senior citizens who are relying on Social Security. They're pretty concerned about a Secretary of Defense who apparently is sending out war plans on unencrypted messaging apps, putting our national security at risk. Those are the topics that my constituents care about. Commercial refrigerators is not one of them. And you can tell the frustration, I suppose, Mr. Speaker, in my voice. It is the frustration born from having to come to the floor every week and debate appliances. Can the Republicans just put all of the appliance bills on, in for consideration 1 week, and we'll just do?
We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use. The Houthis are absolutely on the run. The worst of them has been killed. This should have been done a long time ago by Biden, but Biden was an incompetent president. He couldn't do anything. He's a very good man. That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. So I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag, so maybe that's just coincidence.
We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible.
No, I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again.
Mr. President, are you going to change any of the practices that your national security officials used after a reporter was inadvertently added to a group chat about attacks on Yemen?
Well, I think it's a question I've been asked now, and I've given a few answers, and they've all been the same. We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. These are people that shoot down ships, not only our ships, ships all over the world. They're shooting down right out of the water and damaging them badly, or they're going down. They're also shooting anything that happens to be flying in the area. We hit them very, very hard. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use.
The national security team that was coordinating these efforts, as Director Radcliffe testified today, his first day on the job, he was introduced to this app on his government systems at the CIA and at the State Department and otherwise. So, look, this journalist, Mr. President, wants the world talking about more hoaxes and this kind of nonsense rather than the freedom that you're enabling. And a key part of our sovereignty is open sea lanes and knocking the crap out of terrorists, which is exactly what your team and Pete Hegseth, a good friend and fellow veteran, is leading the charge.
The Houthis are absolutely on the run. The worst of them has been killed. This should have been done a long time ago by Biden, but Biden was an incompetent president. He couldn't do anything. He didn't know where he was going. He had no clue. This guy had no clue. This should have been done a long time ago, as they shoot missiles at ships, randomly shoot missiles at ships, and they make their own missiles. You know, this is not an incompetent group of people. They make their own missiles. They get the missiles also from Iran. It's an offshoot of Iran, another offshoot. You have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, you have the Houthis. You got a lot of stuff going on with Iran. And we sent a letter to Iran. You're going to have to be speaking to us one way or the other pretty soon, because we can't let this happen. But that's an app that a lot of people use. And somebody got on. I mean, happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag. The Atlantic is a failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it. This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this, that they've made up more stories. And they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that. He's a very good man. That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag, so maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know. I said we'll look into it, but everybody else seems to be using it. It seems to be the number one used device or app, whatever you want to call it, and we will certainly look. If it was up to me, everybody would be sitting in a room together. The room would have solid lead walls and a lead ceiling and a lead floor. But, you know, life doesn't always let you do that. In the meantime, the attack itself that we were talking about and discussing has been an unbelievable success. I would ask them, it's not really an FBI thing. It's really something having to do with security. Security, like, will somebody be able to break in? Are people able to break into conversations? And if that's true, we're going to have to find some other form of device. And I think that's something that we may have to do.
We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible. No one in your national security team would ever put anyone in danger. And as you've said, we've repeatedly said, the attack was phenomenal and it's ongoing.
Do you think that Mike Waltz made a mistake, and does he need to apologize?
No, I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again, at least not in the very near future. What do you think?
That's sir. I agree with you. Let's get everybody in the room whenever possible.
A lot of times you find out defects by exactly things like that, but I don't think it's something we're looking forward to using again. We may be forced to use it. You may be in a situation where you need speed as opposed to gross safety. and you may be forced to use it, but generally speaking, I think we probably won't be using it very much. I'm going to sign right now some executive orders, and Will, if you would come forward.
Yes, sir.
I'll start thinking about signing them, right?
A few things for you today, sir. First, we have a pardon for Devin Archer. Devin Archer was a former business partner of the Biden family. He's was prosecuted relating to a fraud investigation, but notably, the tone and tenor of that prosecution changed dramatically after he began to cooperate with congressional investigators and serve as a witness against Hunter Biden and the Biden family. We believe that was an injustice, and therefore we're asking you to pardon him.
And many people have asked me to do this. They think he was treated very unfairly. And I looked at the records, studied the records, and he was a victim of a crime, as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to undo that. All right. That's Devin Archer. Congratulations, Devin.
Next, sir, we have a presidential memorandum for your attention. This memorandum requires the immediate declassification of all FBI files relating to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. This was obviously one of the time for the American people to have a full and complete understanding of what exactly is in those files.
Which gives the media the right to go in and check it. You probably won't bother because you're not going to like what you see. But this was total weaponization. It's a disgrace. Should never happen in this country. But now you'll be able to see for yourselves, all declassified. Is that correct? Would
Yes,
you
sir.
say? All declassified?
Yes, sir.
Everything?
The FBI file with there's a classified annex, but other than that, this will put everything in the public eye.
Is anybody going to look? What about you? You going to look? And frankly, the FBI should be ashamed of themselves, and so should the Department of Justice, and so should Biden. Okay?
Next, sir, we have an executive order for your attention. We've taken action against a number of law firms that have participated either in the weaponization of government, the weaponization of the legal system for political ends, or have otherwise engaged in illegal or inappropriate activities. The law firm of Jenner and Block is one of these law firms. This is a law firm that, as you know, employed Andrew Weissman after he came off of the Mueller investigation. It's a law firm that's engaged in invidious racially and sexually discriminatory practices. It's also a law firm that has participated in the weaponization of the legal system against American principles and values, and we believe that the measures in this executive order will help correct that.
And Andrew Weissman is the main culprit?
He's certainly
with respect to this firm.
He is one of a number of reasons that we believe this executive order is warranted.
He's a bad guy. Okay.
Next, sir, we have an executive order for your attention relating actually to government payments. Historically, checks issued by the Treasury are, I believe, 14 times more likely to become the subject of fraud than electronic transfer payments. This is an executive order that's going to push the Treasury Department to modernize its payment system to ensure that where possible they're using electronic methods of payment as opposed to paper checks in order to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, which is obviously an endeavor that we've been pursuing in numerous aspects of government under your leadership.
It's basically modernization of equipment and methods, and it's something that really I think he's going to be a great Secretary of the Treasury wanted, Scott, and so we're doing this, and we have other modernization programs going on. We could let somebody else, whoever's next, whoever that may be, do it, but it's something that should have been done 25, 30 years ago. Okay.
Along similar lines, sir, this is an executive order. We're calling it Protecting America's Bank Account. The basic idea here is that instead of having lots of different departments and agencies and offices issuing payment, often without justification, often without any provided rationale, we're going to be centraling payment processes where possible in the Department of the Treasury and ensuring that measures are taken in Treasury against waste, fraud, and abuse to ensure that money that's leaving the public Treasury is as protected as it possibly can be.
All right, good. Many of these things should have taken place decades ago or longer.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud, you've heard the term. Will end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other. And it's an honor to sign this one. To sign all of them, but to sign this one is a great honor. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I still really struggle saying Prime Minister Carney. I'd just rather say, hey, Mark, the head of the Liberal Party, decided to, what did he do on Sunday? Well, of course, he announced that there's going to be an election, and a snap election at that. So he turned around and said he's asked the Governor General to dissolve Parliament and call a federal election for April the 28th. Part of his statement, though, was very interesting when he turned around and said, we need to build the strongest economy in the G7. Gee, Mark, for the last 10 years, you've done everything to wind that down. We need to deal with President Trump tariffs. I don't know if anybody caught the clip, but Trump's still waffling on that for April 2nd, just to keep that in mind. And Canadians deserve a choice about who should lead the effort of our country. Yes, Mark, we should. We need a choice because we haven't had a choice in the last 10 years. We've had nothing but a corrupt government. And by the way, Mark, how did you get into power so you can now turn around and dissolve the government? Oh, that's right. You were turned around and made the leader of the Liberal Party, even though nobody wanted you to be the PM. So maybe you could be the shortest PM in history. Hopefully that's the case. So that's coming up April the 28th. But it's interesting because there's so much more to unwind. You know, there's fake news. I mean, everybody should know there's fake news. And some of you may turn around and watch social media and some of the people like on Twitter/X or Instagram, YouTube, places like this, and sit there and say, oh yeah, but that's all false. Everybody's reporting false stuff. Okay, fair enough. But do you really believe CTV and CBC? I mean, heck, you know what? The Canadian Broadcast Corporation, it's owned by the government. You don't think that they're going to sit there and flip the narrative towards them? Because here's the narrative. Liberals widen lead over Conservatives as nearly half of Canadians expect their victory. Now, look at these outstanding citizens that want to be the PM of Canada. I mean, come on. Like, really, this is what we have to select from? Is this how bad our gene pool is when it comes down to looking for a Prime Minister of Canada? And before anybody, jumps up and down and starts telling me how a Prime Minister gets elected, look, it's going to end up being a very small race. Let's be honest, because there's only so many MPs that can get elected in Canada, and there's only so many parties that have MPs in certain ridings. So let's drill it down for a second and let's take a look at what the race truly looks like. And that's right, you've got your three people that are running. Of course, we know the first two and the last one's Jagmeet Singh. But you know what? I don't even count him right now. There is no way this guy will ever be Prime Minister of Canada, and I don't care if he wants to turn around and get his little boxing gloves up when he does his commercials and says, oh, I'm going to fight for Canada. Give me a break, Jag. You were only fighting for your pension, which you got. So, you know what? Bye-bye. Hey, go back to, your native country. Oh, that's right. Can't do that. Go, hey, why don't you whip down to the U.S.? Oh, you can't do that either. So how, if you were going to be Prime Minister of Canada, do you actually think you could travel around the world representing Canada? So let's say there's only a two-horse race. And you know what? There's something about the U.S., the way they run it. I like the idea of having two parties. It makes it a lot easier, decision A or B. Right now, though, this, media is sitting there saying, it's the Liberals. Yeah, they're going to win. Really? Well, before we go down that road, let's think about what Carney has done and who he's got working with him and what he did with his party. He basically wants the same people that have been in power for the last 9 years to form his next government. As a Canadian, ask yourself this: are we better off 9 years later after the government, the Liberal Party governing Canada? As a Canadian, do you feel better 9 years later? I got to tell you, I'm pretty damn sore. You know what? I feel like we are beaten up as a country. And there's only one way that happened, and that's through the governing body of the Liberals. And at this point, could we stand another 4 years? I don't think so. There's no way Canada can withstand 4 years of a Liberal government, and especially under the leadership of Mark Carney. I mean, there's a reason why he's got more nicknames than a school gym locker room, okay? Because the truth is, this guy truly is as evil as he looks. Everybody wants to call him Munster, Dracula, everything, He looks like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, all sorts of, analogies. But the truth is, The guy is a wrecking machine when it comes down to, politics. He doesn't have a clue. He's not looking out for us. But there's a couple of things that you would think that if you are going to start an election, why not work on the one coast and work your way across? So what did he do? Of course, he goes out to the East Coast and he turned around and locked out the fishermen that were there. And, some people say, unruly fishermen with protests. What are they going to do? Beat you to death with a cod? No, the truth is that they were sitting there and they wanted to talk to Carney about the China tariffs. Oh, that's right, everybody. Ding, ding, ding. China put a ton of tariffs on Canada, and especially our seafood, because we ship a lot over to China. And so the fishermen wanted to have a chance to talk to the Liberal now candidate. And I know a lot of people sit there and say, yeah, but it's got to be the party that gets elected to be the prime minister. Forget it. Okay, everybody. There's two people really vying for Prime Minister of Canada, and Mr. Carney here brought the police in so he could have protection, without getting the, beaten by a cod kind of attitude. Again, just one more step to a guy that will not accept any negativity from the press. Okay? If you've watched any of his interviews, it's unbelievable. And he's got a really, really short fuse. So for us, you know what? We got to take a look at some of the things that he does do. I mean, let's take a look at his clip.
Bonjour, Monsieur Carney, c'est Fanny Olivier de Radio-Canada. Le chef conservateur Pierre Poilievre vous met au défi de participer au face-à-face de TVA. Est-ce que vous allez le faire?
Pourquoi pas?
Pourquoi pas?
Oui, pourquoi pas, oui. Il y aura.
Okay, look, we know French isn't his language. I mean, with his 3 passports, France isn't one of them. But truth be told, I mean, the guy is constantly mocking people. I mean, we've got, hours of clips of the guy not saying the right things to reporters. And ultimately, why not have a French debate? Believe it or not, everybody in Canada wants to see this guy debate some of the other leaders that are trying to vie for that position. So again, Carney is constantly trying to dodge bullets. In fact, there's probably one that I would say that Mr. Carney wants a bullet, and it's a big bullet that Mr. Carney wants to dodge altogether. Let's hear what he has to say about President Trump.
Thank you, Steve.
Sir, did you say that President Trump is waiting to talk to the Prime Minister of whoever wins this election?
Well, that's an interpretation, but I think it's a reasonable interpretation. I'm available for a call, but, we're going to talk on our terms as a sovereign country, not as what he pretends we are, and on a comprehensive deal.
Wow. It's amazing how a guy who was named prime minister because he won leadership, Trudeau stepped down, the whole dog and pony show, and he still hasn't addressed the issue that we have facing us. Now, the funny thing about what's going to happen is that the Liberals are going to get the wind sucked out of them because, Trump is playing with the tariffs as a way to get people to negotiate and work better deals. Carney has no idea how to deal with somebody like President Trump. And, one of the things I want to ask everybody is that I would love you to tell me who you think is going to win April the 28th. Is it going to be Carney or is it going to be Pierre? You know what? This is the important thing. Who do you think's going to win? One of the things I'm going to keep saying is if Carney wins, we've already had 9 years, almost 10 years of a destructive government. He's running with the same people. Do we need another 4 years of that? The narrative, and one of the things that Carney continues to tell Canadians is that we're in a bad economic position because of Trump. Trump is only basically 2 months into his presidency and has not put tariffs in place that are going to destroy the Canadian economy. The idea of Hudson Bay going down, that's years in the making. The fact that we have Excess debt, that's liberals in the making. The problem that we have, housing issues, liberals. Everything that he is sitting there blaming now on the U.S. as a narrative, it's time to wake up, Canada. It's time to vote and get the Liberal Party out. Now, I know not everybody's going to agree with the Conservatives, but the one thing I hope everybody does agree on is that we don't need another Liberal government. They'll destroy Canada. As I wrap this up, we've got to keep our eyes on what's really important. To take care of your family, take care of your fellow Canadians, your friends, your family, your children, and the next generation. One of the most important things. But I want to know, who do you think is going to win this election? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Todd C. Slater. Prime Minister Carney, I still really struggle.
List of advisors on Canada-U.S. relations. Mark Wiseman was the co-founder of the Century Initiative, a lobby group that wants to bring Canada's population to 100 million people by 2100. Can I get your reaction to that, and what do you think, how do you feel about the idea of rapidly expanding Canada's population to reach 100 million by the end of the century?
Well, it shows that the Liberals would be no different in a fourth term than they were in the first three. The Liberals destroyed our immigration system in their first three terms in power. They followed a radical globalist ideology of massive, uncontrolled population growth that put strain on our housing market, our health care, and our job market. Now, corporate elites like Mr. Wiseman and Mr. Carney loved it because it drives wages down. It takes jobs away from our workers in numbers that we can't replace by growth in the job market. But it's terrible for our working class. By bringing on Mr. Wiseman, it shows that Mark Carney supports the Liberal Century Initiative to nearly triple our population to 100 million people. We voted against the Century Initiative in the House of Commons, and the Liberals voted for the Century Initiative unanimously. That is the radical Liberal agenda on immigration. We will get back to moderate, reasonable levels of immigration. Our country was built by common sense immigration, but we need to ensure we grow the housing supply, our health care, and our jobs faster than we grow our population. And so I will reject the Century Initiative and get back to common sense immigration that brings people to Canada in numbers that we can hire, that we can house, and that we can care for. That was the best immigration system in the world, and we're going to bring it home again.
General Pam Bondi just locked in on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and fired a warning shot right over the bow. Now, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the past couple of weeks, you've probably seen what's been happening across the country. Tesla dealerships are being targeted, vandalized, and in some cases outright torched by radical far-left activists. Because apparently in 2025, nothing screams social justice like destroying a bunch of electric vehicles in the name of progress. But here's what makes this entire situation even worse. Amidst all of this chaos, with businesses being burned down, lives being endangered, and Elon Musk himself being targeted, not a single progressive politician has stepped in to condemn any of it. In fact, most of them are doing what they do best, pretending like it's not even happening. But then there's Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who, let's just say, isn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. You see, while her progressive colleagues were at least smart enough to keep their mouths shut, Jasmine Crockett decided to go on the record and say this.
On March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
So, yeah, that was a sitting member of Congress, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, explicitly calling for someone to take down Elon Musk. Not metaphorically, not playfully, not jokingly, that was a threat clear as day, coming from a sitting congresswoman who very clearly thinks that the First Amendment allows her to directly incite violence. Folks, I have to say, these radical far-left progressives are getting more unhinged day by day. And this time, it isn't coming from some random deranged weirdo. No, this time it's coming from a senior-ranking Democratic politician who's currently serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. But you know what? Here's some good news. President Trump is back in office, and now this type of deranged, unhinged behavior is no longer going unpunished. In fact, just last night, President Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi directly called out Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett by name, and we're going to take a look at that here in just a moment. But first, I want to say, if you guys enjoy the daily news coverage, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily
These vandals on Tesla vehicles and dealerships, give us the consequences there, and what are you learning once they're arrested? Why are they doing this?
Well, you know, we're looking at so much on this. There have been 3 federal charges so far, and I say so far. We are looking at all of these cases across the country. We have a dedicated task force. These are not isolated incidents, as you know, and these aren't vandals. These are Molotov cocktails. You know, that could be a weapon of mass destruction. These Tesla charging stations on fire that are in residential neighborhoods. I mean, it could cause tremendous damages. And people need to know the 3 people in custody right now, they will receive severe and swift consequences, and they are facing up to 20 years in prison. We are not negotiating these. We are not coming off these charges. We are looking at everything, especially if this is a concerted effort. This is domestic terrorism. And Maria, now you have this Congresswoman Crockett, who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. Yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official, and so she needs to tread very carefully.
You guys hear that? Pam Bondi just absolutely put Jasmine Crockett on notice. The days where these unhinged progressives get to act with complete and total impunity are long gone. Those days are over. Now, you would think that after being directly called out by the Attorney General of the United States of America, Congresswoman Pam Bondi might back down and apologize for what she said. But no, she's not smart enough to do that. Instead, she had this to say.
Just in case the slow people listening decide to click this up later, I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever, yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors such as the ones on January 6th. So Pam Bondi, if you have an issue with terrorism, maybe you should talk to your boss about locking back up those guys that he let out that participated in January 6th.
Well, there you have it. And so, folks, what was her response? She tried to lie about what it is that she actually said. Then she pivoted onto talking about the January 6th protesters for some reason and tried to compare them to the literal domestic terrorists that are blowing up Tesla dealerships across the country right this very moment. Absolutely pathetic behavior. But you know what? Just one more time, just to be perfectly clear about all of this, let's listen to the clip of what she originally said one more time.
On March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check on that. Folks, she was absolutely inciting violence against Elon Musk. So you know what? Given that's the case, let me tell you guys what I think should happen here. I think Pam Bondi should just go ahead and get the ball rolling with all of this. I think she should get Kash Patel involved also. I think the Department of Justice and the FBI should open up a full-blown investigation into Jasmine Crockett's very clear incitement of violence. I also think that House Speaker Mike Johnson should get involved, and he should issue a censure against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. He should also draft up some articles of impeachment because this behavior is absolutely unacceptable for anyone, especially a sitting member of Congress. And you know what? Here's the reality. If it was a Republican that had made these remarks, you know for a fact that the progressive left would be on an absolute crusade right now. And you know what? I have to be honest. I think one of the biggest historic failures of the right is that traditionally they haven't matched the ferocity of the left. And what I mean by that is that the right generally tries to take the high ground and turn the other cheek, and because of this, they rarely end up actually holding the left accountable for all of their unhinged insanity, just like this. And so in situations like this, I really do think that the right has got to match the energy of the left, because at this point, all of these radical far-left progressives need to be held accountable for behavior like this. Because I'll tell you what, if they never get held accountable, they're just going to keep on behaving like this. It will never stop. Because let's be honest, the only reason they're behaving like this in the first place is because they've realized that they can get away with it. As I said earlier, these far-left radical progressives have been acting with complete and total impunity for so long that they've just completely forgotten that actually, this is a country with laws, and that if you break those laws, you will be punished. And the truth is, when you have senior-ranking Democratic politicians like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett advocating for violence like this, it just empowers and emboldens all of her insane supporters. So hey, you know what, folks? Regarding this far-left radical Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, I'm going to go ahead and bring back an old phrase from 2016. Lock her up. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow.